You're probably watching this because you're about to go to your first therapy session. Or you're just curious what it would be like if you were. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I'm also someone who's been to therapy as a patient, and it was nerve-wracking. So if you're feeling a little bit anxious, you are not alone. Today I'm going to give you an overview on how to prep. So the week before, I'm going to give you some reflection questions as well as some practical housekeeping type stuff. And then on the day of, what to do, what to wear, your packing list. Then I'll give you an overview of what might happen during that first session. So the types of questions that a psychologist might ask. And if you watch to the very end, I'll let you in on a secret on what therapists are thinking about you during that first session. Let's get into it. A couple of days to a week before your session is a good time to do some reflecting. Set aside 15-30 minutes of your time and answer some of the questions I'm about to give you. Therapy can be an expensive investment, so let's make the most of it. So the first question is, what is my aim? What is it that I'm looking to change in my life? You can put down a really specific aim relating to a mental health concern, such as reduce my depression, reduce my social anxiety, manage my substance use, stop my binge eating. Or you can choose more of a general lifestyle goal, like I want to learn to be more assertive. I want to learn to be less self-critical and less perfectionistic. I want to build my social circle and be more confident making friends. These are all great goals and great aims. Bear in mind there is no problem or aim that is too small. I know a lot of people come into session and they worry like it's not that big a deal, or I know you have people with bigger issues, but you know what? You can drown in 10 centimeters of water, or you can drown in the middle of the ocean surrounded by sharks. Suffering is suffering, and no matter how you got here, if you're feeling a difficult emotion, it's our job to help. Now, to start you off, if you're not sure what your aim is, pause the video and have a reflect on some of these questions. At the end of therapy, when I start working with this therapist, how do I want my life to look? Or what would I be doing day to day? How would my routine be different? What would I be doing more of in my life? What would I be doing less of or stopping? How might I be feeling different when I finish therapy? In 5 years' time, however long that is or however old you'll be, what would I like to be doing with my life? Really quick caveat, I'm a therapist that works kind of in a combination of CBT, schema, ACT. In my training, it is really important to have a goal and an intention to change. However, I recognize in some other styles, it's not going to be so regimented. And so I know for a fact that psychodynamic therapy is often deeper and it's more patient-led, and it could take years. And there's a very different style. You might not get a whole list of questions. The first session is just a space for you to talk. So having goals and aims is more of a reference to my type of therapy. Second thing to prep is a bit of a timeline. Your psych will inevitably ask you when these issues started. So when did you start avoiding social engagements and constantly worry about what people are thinking about you? When did your OCD or hand washing exceed the typical expected limits? When did you notice that you had no energy left in your body and it was difficult getting out of bed in the morning? The reason for this is many of my patients are feeling quite similar things. They're feeling depressed, or they're feeling anxious, or they're feeling overwhelmed, but the causes and conditions and the reasons why they're feeling that way are completely different. I kind of want to know when it started for you, what was happening in your life around that time. Was there a breakup? Did you graduate from high school or uni? Was there something going on in your family? Were there medical issues? The more detail I know about how this issue started, the better I am going to be at creating a more targeted treatment plan. I don't know if you can hear the cicadas outside. They're like, welcome to Australia. So the timeline is especially useful when people have lots of... Why so loud? So you've sat down and you've reflected a bit. The next thing to prep is actually some of the practical things. If you're in Australia, you might want to get a mental health care plan from your GP, and this means that you actually get money rebated after each session. You get up to 10 sessions each year, and they give you back around $100. You want to visit your GP before the session and make sure that you actually have a hard copy. You can email that to the psych, or you can bring it on the day as well. Another practical thing is have a think about your finances, know how much the session costs, have the money ready in your bank account so you can pay after the session, and finally learn about how that clinic operates. So for instance, at this clinic, all of my sessions are 50 minutes long and I just want to see the individual person. But at my old child and family clinic, the very first session was always an hour and a half long, and then it was only parents, and then the second session was like child only. And to learn about the clinic's procedures, you usually can read about them on their website. So what do you do on the day of the session? Make sure you arrive early. Going to that first therapy session is stressful enough, and so being really late and flustered is too much. Make sure you plan out your route, think about having some buffer time, maybe catch a bus earlier. You can decompress in the waiting room, and for some clinics they'll actually give you some questionnaires before that first session. So if you arrive on the dot, you might actually enter 10 minutes late. Second thing is pack a notebook and a pen, and I actually recommend you use one notebook for your whole therapeutic journey. In that notebook you can write down session notes. After each session I always write down what my client has to do in terms of like a home task or things to reflect on or an exposure task. Keep track of your mood or your sleep or substance use. You can use that to journal, you can use it to write down questions you have during the week. Doing therapy is a commitment and it requires effort over time, and so being organized is going to lead to much better results than just rocking up for that 1 hour and forgetting it when you get home. The next thing is wear super comfy clothes. Your psychologist might be wearing something like smart casual or something a bit more professional, but you can wear whatever you like. Our aim is just to have you as comfortable as possible, and so pick whatever sweats or comfy t-shirt you have. If you can get comfortable, that's going to make for a better session, so don't worry about dressing up. The next thing is relax. Take some deep belly breaths in the waiting room. You cannot say the wrong thing. This is not a test. We are not analyzing you, giving you points, whatever it is. This is a session for you, and so you cannot stuff it up. Even if you didn't do any of the reflection questions that I put before, even if you didn't do any of the housekeeping, it's okay. Your psychologist is meant to be there to help you along the way, and I get it. It's a really big step just going to therapy, so well done. Your only job really in that first session is try to be as open and honest as you can and kind of be open for the journey. After your session, make sure that you're scheduling some time off. Don't rush straight back into work or a meeting, even if it's just 15 minutes to let yourself decompress. Often after that first session, people can experience like a vulnerability hangover. It's a lot to sit down in front of a complete stranger and tell them all about your life. Even if it's not right after your session, make sure that night you have something nourishing scheduled. If it's, exercising or going for a walk or getting your favorite food by a takeout, or making sure you set some time to connect with someone that you care about. Okay, so let's talk about what an actual session will look like. If you want to see like a POV type video, I've actually got one on my channel where I kind of pretend to be your psychologist. It's a bit of a roleplay thing. But yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview. And like I said before, these are the questions that I will ask. Different types of therapies and different models will have slightly different questions, but here's just an overview if you're not sure. So you're going to be sitting in a waiting room, and at your allocated session time, your therapist will come and get you, and you'll walk together to your therapy room, which is something that's going to look a bit like this. Usually I sit in one chair and my client sits in another chair, and that's where you'll spend pretty much the entire session. And usually every single week you'll go back to the exact same therapist and the exact same room. Usually we start with confidentiality, which is talking about how everything we discuss in session is private, or what are the limits to that. And then you'll get into some housekeeping, like how long the sessions are, what the expectations are for homework, or who the therapist is. It's a chance for you to ask any questions. Please bring all the questions that you might have, and just a chance for you guys to have a little bit of a chat. And then I always start with a question like, so what led you to reach out to us? Or what's been going on for you recently? And a psychologist will probably cover some of the following topics, things like your current concerns, a timeline of what's going on, when this started, how it started, life stresses, what's going on with your work, with your family, relationships, friendships. Might ask about your early experiences, childhood, family. Could also ask about your medical history or substance use or gambling. We'll always touch on strengths and hobbies, social connections, things that you like doing, things that you want to continue doing or grow. And at the end, I always end with a bit of a summary, maybe 5 minutes on my general impressions of what the person has told me, a little bit of an overview of what I think we could be working on. I'll also give an idea of how many sessions we might need, and also a vague treatment plan, and ask if that aligns with what the client's goals are. And then that's it. At the end of 50 minutes, you'll say bye, thank you, and you'll be on your way. Sometimes this means you walk to admin and you pay for your session, or sometimes your therapist does that with you. Now, if you're curious what to do after that session, Things like figuring out, is that psychologist the right fit for me? Or maybe you've done a little block of therapy and you're not really sure. That's a whole other video. So if you are interested in, is this psychologist the right person for me? Is this the right fit for me? Comment down below, and if there's enough people, then I'll make another video on that. Like I said at the start, if you watched to the end and you've made it this far, I'll let you know some behind the scenes of what therapists are thinking during that first session. First of all, thank you so much. Feel free to leave a like or subscribe below. It really helps me out, and it means that I can continue making videos like this. One of the things that your therapist might be thinking is, I hope my patient likes me. It is so common for patients to tell me, like a couple of sessions down the track, they were so nervous during session 1, they were worried I wouldn't like them or I would judge them. But this goes both ways. Like, I've done so much training and I want to do well, and like this first impression is a big deal. It's almost like I'm trying to offer these services and I'm hoping that you want to engage in this and you want to work on this together. So chances are, if you're nervous about meeting your therapist is a little bit nervous about meeting you. And the other thing is, whoa, that's a lot. I think in order to remain professional and not to take over the session with our own emotions, we are trained to a degree to kind of control your emotional reaction. Like if someone tells us something that was quite heavy, if we're like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, or like, holy, that's so yeah, that's probably not going to help the patient too much. Often when they tell me what's been going on in their lives, I'm actually secretly going like, how the heck did you get through that? Rest assured, sometimes I am thinking that in my own head. So one thing to not worry about is your therapist judging you. First of all, if your therapist is judging you, they're probably not a very good therapist. We all have internal kind of likes and dislikes and that kind of thing, but if it's getting in the way of the session and you feel like they're not being very understanding, or you can feel that they're being judgmental of them, they are not the right fit for you. Therapy is for you. It is a tool. It is a way of reaching out to a professional. And if for any reason you feel uncomfortable, you're worried that you have a bad rapport with your therapist, that might be a sign to change. Alrighty, I hope that was helpful and makes you feel a little bit more prepared before your first session. Actually, making that first appointment is a really brave step, and I'm really proud of you. It's huge to be able to say, gosh, I'm going through a really tough time and I need a little bit of support, and it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. Really big things happen after taking that first step. It doesn't even matter how the first session goes. You know, there are lots of other factors like the other therapist and how you're feeling on the day and stuff like that. Just making that decision to start therapy and to start taking care of yourself is really big. However, if you're not in the financial position, or you're not really ready, or you're just thinking about therapy, click subscribe and join the community. I'm going to try and make as many free videos as I can about therapy. I really want to demystify mental health and make it accessible. And while I'm not your personal therapist, I hope to give you more information about therapy and psychology, and to do it in a legit way. Everything I talk about is evidence-based and from my real practice. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a really good day, and good luck for that first therapy session. Bye!